Let's unpack this. We are diving into a story that's so utterly strange.
It's quite something.
Our mission today, really, is to track the collapse of Randall, Missouri, a seemingly tranquil village, one that deliberately walled itself off from the modern world.
Completely cut off.
Only to find that the forces of progress and maybe something older, much darker, just wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, that something old is key.
So this deep dive, it centers on this deadly local referendum and, frankly, a bizarre series of homicides rooted in literary obsession.
And what's fascinating right off the bat is the sheer intensity of the shift for our protagonist.
Yeah.
You have Joe Pavone,
Right.
40 years old, founder of a multi-million-dollar think tank Unimind in New York, big player in corporate strategy.
But he just walks away.
Just walks away, trades that high-octane corporate life for profound seclusion in some Missouri hollow. And get this, his own board, the people he worked with, they labeled his desire for solitude and, deep thinking as arcane.
Arcane, that's a loaded term. Why arcane? He wasn't, joining a competitor or anything. He was leaving to write crime novels.
Right. It says so much about the pace of modern tech, doesn't it? Pavone's work at Unimind, it was about long-term strategy, deep thinking, the kind of analysis that actually requires quiet, requires solitude.
Time.
Exactly. And in the frenetic, quick-turn innovation cycle of Silicon Alley, anything that takes longer than a fiscal quarter to show results, it's seen as irrelevant, esoteric, almost like magic on how slow it is.
So they saw his need for silence not as restorative, but as
Outdated.
professionally outdated, an indulgence, a flight to the obscure. So he left. He went looking for air that was truly fresh, free from the constant noise, construction, sirens, traffic. He just longed for silence.
The silence he needed to write these complex crime novels he had planned. But the price for that silence was immediate, and it was incredibly high. He wasn't just leaving a company, he was leaving a whole life behind.
Yeah. Linda, she flatly refused to go with him.
Flatly refused. She was career-focused, had family roots in New York. For her, Randall was just a non-starter.
No technology, no cell phone reception or internet. That's what she said, right?
Yeah, and she called his move ultimately selfish. But Joe went anyway. He chased this idea of a secluded muse over his relationship. It really shows how desperate he was to escape that sensory overload of the city.
That desperation, though, it sets the stage perfectly for Randall, because Randall was literally designed for people like Joe, people who craved disconnection.
Absolutely. Randall was founded back in 1995. The whole principle was extreme isolation.
Hard to get to, I gather.
Oh, yeah. 100 miles to the nearest town. They highly screened residents. Population limit, just 200 people.
200, wow.
And mail delivery, get this, twice a month by boat.
By boat?
It was a self-imposed quiet zone, almost like a philosophical experiment in, Luddism.
Okay, so what shatters this deep established quiet, this sanctuary?
Technology, ironically. A federal antenna grant. Randall was gearing up for this crucial referendum, a vote on a technology expansion bill.
To build a giant antenna.
Exactly, bringing the very things they had fled. Cell service, internet, cable TV, the works.
So this wasn't just some local political debate. This was existential.
Totally. It threatened their entire founding philosophy. You had the village administrator, George Brimston. He was pushing for it. Vocal advocate.
What was his angle?
He called it a unique opportunity to awaken our community and interact with the outside world. He saw connection as growth, progress.
And almost immediately, that deep philosophical divide, it turns lethal.
It proves that isolation doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it just bottles up rage.
The first victim, Mac Derby, a local fisherman, and he was strongly in favor of the tech expansion.
Yeah, Mac was pro-tech because he was struggling. Professionally, things weren't great. He desperately wanted that bill to pass.
Why? What would it do for him?
He wanted access to fancy new GPS or satellite tech for his boat, the Brigadier. He saw tech as safety efficiency, a way to maybe save his livelihood.
Okay, so how did he die? The official story was murky, right?
Very ambiguous. Suicide or accident. He was found dead, tangled in his own net, hanging over the side of his boat. Yeah. And they found an empty antidepressant pill bottle on the deck. He apparently had a history of depression after his brother died. So the official narrative was, despair, tragedy.
Okay, there's always a but in these stories, isn't there?
Always. The source material gives us that crucial contradiction. The thing that makes you question the suicide ruling.
Which was?
The very same day he died, Mac had apparently celebrated landing one of the biggest catches in a while.
Oh, So a professional high point, not a deep spiral into self-destruction.
Exactly. It doesn't quite fit.
Right. And this is where the narrative control starts to kick in. George Brimston, the pro-tech administrator, he's one of the first people Joe meets.
Mm-hmm. And what does he do?
He immediately warns Joe about rumors of murder being spread. Says it's just people who want more excitement in town.
Whoa, okay. That is a massive red flag right there.
Isn't it? George insists Mac's death was purely an accident or suicide. He's immediately dismissing any possibility of foul play, pushing this excitement seekers narrative.
So the town's leadership, or at least Brimston, they're trying to control the information flow, even suppressing details like that pill bottle from the general public.
Seems like it. They clearly want the tech vote to proceed smoothly, without the complication of a murder investigation.
So much for serenity. The isolation seems to be breeding paranoia and suspicion instead.
The tension is just ratcheting up, and then the isolation is officially brutally broken by the second and third deaths.
And this establishes a clear, chilling pattern.
Yeah, the killer's exclusively targeting those who vocally supported the technology expansion bill. This is a radical preservationist.
Okay, victim number 2.
Annie Oldenfeld. She was the village candle maker.
A candle maker. And she represented sort of the modern artisan, eager to use technology for, economic growth.
Exactly. She hoped the expansion bill would let her finally sell her specialty soy-blended candles online.
What kind? Do we know?
Yeah, specifically patchouli and neroli scents. She wanted to reach a market way beyond Randall's 200 residents. For her, connectivity meant commerce.
But her death, it was horrifyingly intimate and personalized.
Yeah, the killer used her own tools, her own trade against her. She was found asphyxiated.
How? What happened exactly?
Let's slow down here because the details are methodical and horrific. Annie apparently woke up groggy, reached for what she thought was a glass of water next to her bed.
Okay.
But she grabbed a glass candle jar instead, filled with warm vanilla wax, and she ingested it. As she recoiled, obviously in shock, the wax was sucked up into her nose and mouth.
And Doc Dolman Bijou, the local physician, he confirmed.
He confirmed the wax was deliberately, chillingly laced with industrial-strength superglue.
Superglue.
Yeah. It created an immediate, rigid, unbreakable seal. Caused asphyxiation from blood aspiration. The killer made sure the barrier was thick, resilient, and unbreakable.
Wow. That's incredibly symbolic, perfectly reflecting the killer's desire to permanently seal Randall off from the outside world.
Executed through low-tech craft to reject high-tech connection.
Yeah.
The psychological terror of that is just intense.
And the pattern continued. Victim number 3, Scott Plimpton.
Scott was the gourmet garlic grower, specialized in, I think, prized Creole red garlic, and then he was another enthusiastic supporter of the tech bill.
Right. Scott wanted to integrate connectivity into his farm work. He was eager to create a Wi-Fi hydroponic garden.
Therefore, tracking soil health.
Minute-by-minute tracking of soil health, yeah. Automated monitoring of UV exposure. He saw technology as precision farming, growing the perfect crop.
So his death, how is it different?
Completely different. Slower, more insidious. Suggests a long period of planning.
How was he found?
He was found covered in coffee grinds. He'd been suffering cold sweats, convulsions, cramps all week. The cause of death was thallium sulfate poisoning.
Thallium sulfate, I've heard of that. Isn't that called the poisoner's poison?
That's exactly what it's called, and for good reason. It's colorless, odorless, tasteless, and crucially, the human body tragically mistakes the thallium ions for potassium.
For potassium, so
Yeah.
it absorbs it readily.
Right into the cells. Which means the killer systematically targeted Scott for weeks, likely, while he unknowingly drank or ate this poison.
That speaks to immense cold-blooded premeditation. This isn't random rage.
Not at all. Doc Bijou confirmed it had been building up slowly. The fatal dose, which is less than a quarter of a teaspoon, mind you, found in a shattered ceramic mug mixed with coffee grinds. Scott ultimately died from ascending paralysis and respiratory failure.
Wow. This killer demonstrated patience, sophisticated knowledge of toxicology. They weren't just some simple Luddite smashing machines. They were a methodical operator.
Exactly. But the real kicker for Joe, the thing that pulls him right into the center of this, this shocking revelation from Constable Green. The killer is a fan of Joe's. They're leaving references to his crime novels with each body.
Oh, come on.
Seriously.
Joe, who came to Randall seeking silence to write fiction, is now starring in his own bloody book tour. His fiction made terrifyingly real.
That's incredibly narcissistic. The killer isn't just targeting opponents, they're using Joe Pavone's books as their calling card.
Making the crime itself a kind of macabre performance art.
Okay, let's track these signatures. Mac, the fisherman.
Found with a gray chess knight stuffed in his mouth.
Referencing
Joe's novel, Checkmate, The Pale Horse. It's about tactical maneuvering, political assassinations. The knight symbolizes that strategic, indirect nature of the first kill, making it look like suicide.
Right. Annie, the candlemaker. A red styrofoam ball covered in wax was placed at the scene.
And that links to
Joe's Crimson Moon series. That series features symbolic color coding, intricate planning. The styrofoam maybe suggests lightness, disposability, how the killer viewed Annie's life. And the wax, obviously, ties back to the murder method.
Okay. And Scott, the garlic grower, found covered in coffee grinds.
That's a direct, undeniable reference to Joe's most famous book, Death at the Daily Grind.
So the killer isn't just reading, they're analyzing Joe's work, connecting plot points to their real-world targets.
It's twisted. They despise the technology Joe fled, but they use the technology of literature, Pavone's books, as their, high art sabotage platform.
Joe is understandably hesitant at first. I'm just a writer, he says.
Yeah, who wouldn't be?
But that direct connection to his books, it convinces him he has to help, he has to interview residents. So begins the reluctant detective arc.
But before he can really dig into the earthly suspects, he gets attacked himself. In his own home.
What happened?
He comes back to his secluded cabin, finds the door slightly open. Before he can react, boom, blindsided, knocked out cold.
And the killer.
Or an accomplice, we don't know at this point. They rifled through his personal stuff, specifically pages from his current crime novel draft.
So it wasn't just robbery, it was psychological. Dominance.
Exactly. An assertion that the killer controls Joe's reality, even his fictional world.
And that blow, that trauma, it triggers something deep in Joe. The sources describe this incredibly detailed dream state he enters.
Yeah, like a kaleidoscopic vision. He saw all the paths he hadn't taken, the lives he hadn't led.
This is where the arcane really starts to manifest in Joe's life, isn't it? Not just a label from his board, but something real.
It seems so. As he watched these flickers of time, these alternate realities rise and fall, he had this realization. The paths he rejected. They shaped his soul just as much as the one he actually followed.
He concluded, I carry all possibilities within me.
Wow.
Yeah. His soul wasn't just defined by the road taken, but by the conviction it took to reject the others. So he gets these immediate glimpses into his possible selves. What did he see?
He saw Joe, the ultimate corporate titan, CEO at Jeep headquarters in Michigan, testing a super high-tech Grand Wagoneer.
Enjoying it.
Loving it. Delighted by the autonomous features, the sound system, feeling this visceral satisfaction of eliminating corporate pretenders. This was Power Joe. Tech as domination.
Okay, what else?
The complete opposite. Joe, the musician, moving to Nashville with Linda, gently singing, plucking his guitar. A life of creative harmony, partnership.
A softer path.
Then there was the simpler path. Joe, back on the family farm in Missouri, left college after one semester, prefers tilling the soil to the intellectual grind of Unimind. The Luddite Joe, valuing tradition.
And one more.
The version still married to Linda, still running Unimind, but happy, using a modern laptop, not his vintage typewriter, planning their wedding.
So realizing he could have been happy within the tech world, that must have been incredibly disorienting given why he came to Randall.
Absolutely. And this traumatic attack, this dream state, it seems to have opened Joe up somehow, made him more receptive to the weirdness happening in Randall.
The strange phenomena, like what?
He starts noticing things the locals maybe took for granted. Like the crows. An unusual number of crows gathering, especially around the times and locations of the murders.
Crows. Okay. Did he talk to anyone about this?
Yeah, he sought out Father Cameron Alvarez, the rector of the village church, and Alvarez provides this layer of, religious and folkloric context.
What did he say about the crows?
He discussed the Yalkut Shimoni interpretation of ravens and crows, how the text suggests they're profoundly insightful, they know the intimate mysteries of death, act as omens, sensing death before it happens.
Okay, that's standard folklore maybe. But then
the source material reveals something specific, terrifying, unique to this region. The Jumalis.
Jumalis, what are they? This is where the spiritual intrigue really kicks in.
Right. The Jumalis are defined as powerful spirits from another realm entirely. They're drawn to intense, concentrated human conflict.
And they choose to inhabit crows. Why crows?
Crows are natural scavengers, observers. The Jumalis use them as conduits, vessels. And they feed off intense, negative human emotions.
Like paranoia, conflict, grief.
Emotional rage, yeah. They feed on it to gather strength to explore other worlds.
So the community's internal conflict, this whole tech vote nightmare, was basically a giant emotional buffet for these spirits.
Precisely. They were drawn to Randall because there was much unrest gathering in this place. That conflict pulled them like a magnet.
So the presence of the Jubilee suggests the killer wasn't just acting on simple anti-tech rage. They might have been influenced, feeding the very forces that would ultimately doom the village.
It's a chilling possibility, isn't it, that the human drama was attracting something else entirely.
Okay, so while Joe is grappling with these arcane forces, he still has a very real earthly crime to solve. And he zeroes in on a suspect.
George Brimston, the pro-tech administrator.
Yeah, Joe's reasoning seemed sound at the time. George was the most vocal proponent of the bill. He was seen arguing fiercely with Mac Derby, the first victim.
So Joe thought George might be trying to frame the opposition, the Luddite faction, to ensure the tech vote passed smoothly.
Maintain momentum at any cost. Yeah, it was Joe's theory.
But the killer. They seemed determined to stay 3 steps ahead, using surgical precision, sophistication.
And before Joe can act on his suspicion of Brimston, the misdirection continues.
Yeah.
There's a 4th victim.
Jack Carraway, described as a neutral senior resident.
And his death. Another different method.
Completely different, found slumped over his desk. Smoking electrical wires attached to his wrists looked like some gruesome torture scenario at first.
But it wasn't.
Doc Bijou quickly confirmed Jack died after he was incapacitated, not from the electrocution itself.
Incapacitated how?
Toxic, fatal levels of the anesthetic prelocaine were found in his blood.
Prelocaine, like dental anesthetic.
Exactly. And conveniently, traces were also found in the liquor bottle on his desk.
So why Jack? Why kill him?
He was simply a witness. Jack had apparently seen the killer walking back from Scott Plimpton's house after the thallium poisoning. He became a liability.
So the killer chemically neutralized him first, then staged the electrocution. To look like what? An aggressive interrogation. A shocking suicide.
Could be either. The point is, the meticulous nature of using prelocaine suggests the killer had access to medical or chemical supplies and a high degree of confidence. They weren't panicking.
Okay, so now there are 4 bodies.
Uh-huh.
And Joe's primary suspect, George Brimston, is suddenly removed from the equation.
Yep. George Brimston is found dead by the lake 2 days later, fishing pole in hand, seemingly enjoying a final moment of peace.
And the method of his death. This must have blown Joe's theory apart.
Completely, and it's perhaps the most personally sadistic yet. It proves the killer knows their victim's deepest vulnerabilities intimately.
How did George die?
George was a severe diabetic. He was force-fed a massive, fatal amount of pure honey.
Honey, oh my God.
He died from diabetic shock. The sweetness, something normally comforting, weaponized as this final, cruel flourish.
So that confirmed Joe was wrong about George framing the opposition. The anti-tech killer was definitely still out there.
Very much at work, and right after that, they target law enforcement itself. Constable Donald Green is found, pale, unconscious. Poisoned with a massive amount of printer ink, injected directly into his circulatory system via a syringe.
Printer ink, that is bizarre, specific, almost degrading.
It's like a visual metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Poisoning information, bureaucracy itself.
Does he survive?
Barely.
Yeah.
Constable Green survives, but the attack is ruthlessly timed because right then, the phone lines are confirmed down.
No.
Just a computerized voice. All lines are down. Please try again later. The village is now completely cut off. Total isolation achieved just hours before the crucial tech vote.
Wow. So despite the chaos, the murders, no communication, they still hold the referendum.
They proceed. Led by Riley Jones now. They feel they have to know who they are, what the village stands for. The vote is the only thing left, maybe.
And the result?
The pro-tech side wins. The bill passes 110 to 90.
Wow. So Connection wins, despite the immense human cost. The community's shattered by fear, but the tech faction prevailed.
Seemingly, and they actually hold a celebration dinner at the Annex Hall right after the vote, trying to grasp at some semblance of normalcy, even with all the fear hanging in the air.
A celebration dinner. Okay, that feels premature. Or maybe necessary.
Maybe both, but that's where the killer's true ultimate plan is finally revealed. Mass destruction.
How? What happens at the dinner?
Doc Dolman Bijou, the same doctor who did the autopsies, he's sitting down to eat. He's a keen herbologist, apparently.
Okay.
He's looking closely at his roasted quail, seasoned with rosemary, oregano, a zesty Creole blend. But he notices something sweet, something that doesn't belong, spits out his food.
And he recognizes it.
Immediately, he identifies the contaminant as hemlock seeds.
Hemlock, as in Socrates' hemlock.
The very same. And not just a few seeds. He announces the shocking truth to the whole room. There were enough seeds, sourced directly from Scott Plimter's garden,
The garlic grower victim.
mixed into the seasoning to quickly poison every single person in that hall.
Oh my God. This was the end game. Not just targeting individuals, but wiping out the entire community, regardless of the vote.
Ensuring Randall ceased to exist rather than become connected. The room just erupts. Pandemonium, people coughing, gagging, realizing they just dodged mass poisoning by seconds, thanks to the doctor's palette.
So Joe, he's the acting constable now, right? What does he do?
He demands everyone stay put, asserts the killer is still in the room, among them, and he starts connecting the dots out loud. Thinking about the killer's meticulous nature, their obsession with his books, the investigation details.
What detail clicks?
He realizes the key detail George Brimston had initially suppressed. That empty antidepressant pill bottle found next to Mac Derby, who, outside of law enforcement, George and Mac's immediate family knew that private, specific detail.
And the answer is?
Jasper Green, the constable's adopted son, and Joe's #1 avid fan.
Jasper, the
Yep.
constable's son.
Yeah. Joe suddenly recalls Jasper's deep, defining trauma, witnessing his parents murdered years earlier because technology, the phone lines failed. They couldn't call the police during the attack.
Oh, wow. So Joe realizes Jasper's deep loathing of tech, his desperate, almost primal instinct to preserve Randall's isolation. That's what drove the murders.
In Jasper's traumatized mind, connectivity equals death, failure. The tech bill wasn't just a policy issue, it triggered a psychotic break.
Does Jasper confess?
Immediately, almost proudly, he sneers at Joe, says it was thrilling breaking into your house to glimpse your new ingenious book draft. Admits he killed Jack Carraway because Jack saw him near Scott's house. He wanted nothing to do with new tech after it failed his family. George's proposal was an existential threat to his safety, his world.
Okay, so motive established, case closed, or?
Just when you think it's sealed, the floor drops out again. The true, darker double twist.
What is?
Constable Donald Green, Jasper's adopted father. He emerges from the kitchen.
The constable, the one who was poisoned with ink.
The very same. He confesses he found out about Jasper's actions after the first murder, after Mac Derby died, but he chose not to stop him.
He knew, and he let it continue.
Worse, he confesses he killed George Brimston himself. With the honey. To cover your tracks, he tells Jasper, to enable his son's murderous preservation efforts.
He killed Brimston and the printer ink poisoning.
He poisoned himself. A dramatic diversion, he admits, to delay the tech vote, throw suspicion off Jasper, maintain Jasper's fragile sense of security.
My God. He was consumed by this need to protect his son and this twisted idea of Randall as a place of serenity he'd created for him.
Even if that serenity was built on mass murder, he had to hold on to his son, this false sense of protection. He realized, he says, in that moment, that he too was a Luddite, but a profoundly compromised one.
So, as Constable Green and Jasper are being led away, there's one final piece.
The final, crucial piece of the puzzle. Jasper looks up at Joe, smug, chilling, and he speaks just one monotone word. Ravenswood.
Ravenswood, what does that mean?
Joe realizes the entire sequence right from the beginning was a setup, orchestrated. The invitation letter Joe received back in New York, the one supposedly from a software company called Ravenswood seeking his consultancy.
That was the initial lure. It wasn't real.
Not real in the way Joe thought. Joe had suspected maybe a corporate Trojan horse, a virus partnership kind of thing, but it was far more personal, intentional.
Jasper sent it.
Jasper sent a computer virus hidden on a seemingly innocent CD to Joe's company, Unimind. The virus was designed specifically to sabotage Joe's company.
Why? To ensure Joe.
To ensure Joe Pavone, the celebrated crime writer, the unwitting source of the killer's motives, the man seeking an arcane escape would be lured to the silent village of Randall.
It was the ultimate twisted fan interaction. A deadly, highly engineered trap relying on Joe's specific identity. Jasper wanted Joe there to witness the real-life unfolding of his own fiction, to demonstrate ultimate control.
Joe's corporate Arcane retreat wasn't an escape at all. It was orchestrated by a deranged fan seeking ultimate isolation, using Joe as both inspiration and pawn.
So what happens to Joe? Does he stay?
He stays for a few more weeks, helps stabilize things, testifies against the Greens, but then he leaves. He realizes he was brought to Randall when he needed that reckoning, that confrontation with his possible selves, but The place itself, it wasn't for him.
He vows to regain his faith, follow a path to truth, leaves the chaotic seclusion and the ghosts behind.
But the story of Randall, it doesn't end there. The sources make that very clear.
Oh, what happens after Joe leaves?
1 year later, the village has actually done it. They successfully installed the technology, cell service, internet. They even fixed the iconic clock tower, symbolizing their triumph, they thought, over that isolationist philosophy.
They thought they'd achieve safety through modernity.
Exactly. And that's when the ultimate arcane force finally steps in.
The Jubilees.
The Jubilee spirits. The ones drawn to and feeding upon all that intense emotional conflict, the paranoia, the murders, the vote, they emerge. From an underground cavern, apparently.
They'd been quietly harvesting all that negative energy, the grief, the conflict, the rage.
And now they were strong enough. They unleashed their own form of devastation that's like isolation's revenge, but executed by this external spiritual force.
Yeah, what do? The Crow Catastrophe.
Bizarrely low-tech, but ruthlessly effective. It's a record-breaking hot day. These Jubilees inhabited crows, they start scavenging small metallic fragments.
Okay.
And using their intelligence, they intentionally start brushing these metal bits against the new power lines.
No. Seriously.
Seriously, a perfect storm. High heat, conducting material, and intentional sabotage by an intelligent, non-human force. It causes a massive power failure. Uncontrollable electrical fire starts spreading rapidly through the dry village.
And the new technology. The antenna.
Failed instantly. The new antenna relay tower, the very symbol of their victory over isolation. Quickly overwhelmed, it falls. The new power grid becomes the vector for destruction.
And the blackouts prevent calling for help.
Every other method. Proving that connectivity without resilience is ultimately meaningless.
What was the damage?
90% of the village burned down, including the newly repaired clock tower.
90%.
The residents, having just survived mass murder, they're forced to evacuate to the next town. Randall is left an uninhabitable ruin.
Riley Jones, the new administrator who pushed the tech bill. What did he say?
He confirmed the tragedy to the local news, summed up the incredible, crushing irony. He said, "We lost Randall tonight. Our grand experiment, a little piece of paradise, is now gone."
Wow.
Even though we had technology, it failed. We were not able to evade devastation and save the village. It was shattered by a murder of crows.
Shattered by a murder of crows. The irony is just complete. The intense emotional energy of the human conflict, connection versus isolation, it fueled a spiritual rage that destroyed the village anyway, regardless of the vote.
Joe Pavone's quiet escape became the stage for total devastation, a chilling cautionary tale about the unseen costs of human turmoil.
So thinking about this, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've just traced the collapse of this quiet zone, destroyed by this fatal mix of tech obsession, deep trauma, and this underlying spiritual rage.
Yeah, the villagers' desperate desire for technology and security, or the killer's intense, murderous desire for isolation, both paths led to the same destruction. They were consumed by their own emotional output, which attracted this ancient destructive force.
The lesson here may be drawn from the wreckage of Randall. It's a really deep one about protection, isn't it? They tried so hard to guard against external threats, the noise, the internet, the modern world, and internal threats, the killer in their midst.
But they failed entirely to guard against the intangible, the emotional byproduct of their own conflict, the thing they couldn't see or measure.
So the question we leave you with is this. When you're seeking security, or maybe even isolation, in your own life, is the greatest danger the enemy you know? The tangible things, the cell phone, the internet, the job pressures.
Or is it the unseen, intangible influence, like the Jubilees, fueled by the intense emotions that you've forgotten or neglected to guard against?
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.